What's your thoughts on the role of being an executive today before the social media versus before when there was no social media?
Well, I was one of the first 1,000 people on Twitter. And in fact, I did another interview today and someone said, Jeff, you were one of the first people. I said, yes, we were. And they said, well, how did you make that bright decision? I said, I didn't. I listened to my team, and my team said, you got to sign up for this Twitter account, right? You got to sign up for this Facebook account. I'm going, what the hell? What the hell is this? I'm not taking pictures of my food. I'm not going to let people know what I'm doing, because you got to imagine as execs, we can't let people know where we're staying. We don't stay in the same hotels typically where our employees stay because you don't want to run into them if they've been drinking. You don't want to run into somebody if they're coming out of a hotel room early in the morning, whatever might happen. Or we also get death threats at some of the major companies, kidnapping attempts, and we've had those kinds of things. So we had to put in kind of policies. I had to learn these policies, like we don't tweet we're at that day. I mean, things like that, because people would show up. We had security threats where people would show up. This is early on. Because when you think about it, if you're laying people off, you're making big changes. If you're in some countries where this thing is fairly common, and you're an exec and they know you're there, you're a target for those kind of things. But I believe early on, I named the very first chief blogger. I named the very first chief listing officer ever to exist in the world in business, and I saw that was important. Why? Listen, let's think from a marketing perspective. Marketing typically, is the inception of the idea all the way through customer satisfaction, and the way in which we had product innovation was top down. We'd have 4 meetings a year, planning sessions, and maybe in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, maybe in 5, we'd bring out a new product. That's what it would work like. Well, with social media, I got instant feedback on the camera. I got instant feedback on the phone. I get instant feedback on the tires, right? Whatever I'm selling or whatever we're marketing. And now I can make adjustments to that. And by the way, it's free. It's OPM, other people's money. I had marketing research budgets of $100 million. And now I'm cutting that to like $3 million because I've got this great, landscape of all of this data coming in at me that I didn't have before. Not to mention what it does for customer service, right? In terms of solving things in real time. So I saw that fairly early as a way in which you could have your brand voice, and change the way that we did it, because now content drives community and community drives commerce. And it used to be a lot different in the early days in 2006, 7, 8, 9, when social media was first getting started to what it is today. I mean, it's just massive. I mean, you can go on social media and make a huge impact. You can make one stupid mistake, and pretty soon you've got a big problem on your hand, or you got a big success. There's some things that we do on social media that nobody does. I announced the ending of Kodak Kodachrome on social media, and I did it by interacting with the characters of the show Mad Men. As a CMO, I was interacting with those characters, and they have real characters on Mad Men on the Twitter account. And I was predicting that in a certain year, Kodachrome wouldn't exist. Well, I was letting people know that a year later, we were going to let that product go, but I was predicting it as though I was in 1962. So there's lots of things you can do, and how fun was that, right? And that's the way in which we did it. So there's a lot of cool things that you can do with social media. I mean, Kentucky Fried Chicken, let me give a good example. One of my employees uncovered Kentucky Fried Chicken was only following of its entire Twitter account 7 people. They were what is it? 7 herbs and spices. So they were following the Spice Girls and 4 guys named Herb. And one of my employees said, "What are they doing? Why are they following only 7 people?" It was 7 herbs and spices. So Herbs and the Spice Girls. And he found that out, and they sent him a painted picture of the Colonel, and they announced it. They thought it was a publicity by me and my team, but I had nothing to do. I didn't even get a bucket of chicken out of the deal. But, how cool is that? How cool for a brand to be able to do something like that? And they said it took a year, almost a year and a half before people figured that out. Yeah. I thought that was the coolest thing that Mike, his name, Mike, I can't remember his last, Mike Edge, I think I can't remember Mike's last name, but Mike was our employee, and he did that. And I thought, wow, what a smart guy, what a great guy, and what a cool thing by Kentucky Fried Chicken, quite frankly.
And here we are years later on a podcast still talking about KFC because they've done something that was actually in tune and listening and fun and like not what you would say like the top down, like just getting a pulse and being more connected. And I can see the difference between a campaign there. It's like, what are the risks? How aligned is it? Herbs and spices. It's kind of like fitting the KFC brand. And you see what happened at Bud Light and you know how there was a massive disconnect. So like, how did that happen is like, feels like a lack of listening, which seems to be the biggest problems that could get companies into trouble, the same way that it gets salespeople into trouble, right?
Well, I mean, but think about this. What happens? It made it easier for Kentucky Fried Chicken to only follow 7 people because they have the opportunity to follow millions of people. Well, what happens if they follow, I don't know, a white supremacist or a Nazi lover or something like that by accident? Right? And then someone finds out. So this made it even simpler to follow 7 herbs and spices. That was it. So, and I thought, well, that's brilliant because, you know, as a brand, who do you follow, not follow? You know, and you know, imagine back then at Kodak, we had people who would use you know, like for instance, there's a song out there that had the, you know, Kodak, and then it also had the N-word in it. Well, how do you respond to that as a brand? You know, how do you do that? We partnered with Playboy. Oh my gosh, how can you partner with Playboy? Well, last I checked, the First Amendment says, you know, freedom of speech. And freedom of speech says you get to print these kinds of photographs. You get to do these kinds of things. Do we say no, we don't, or do we follow what the Constitution says in our host country where we were founded? So these are decisions that you have to make sometimes. And we had to find out, well, we might not condone the use of a certain word in the song. We recognize the iconic nature of our company and the role it's played in all culture, in all amongst all sexes, races, and socioeconomic, populations. So that's the way we had to respond, you know. And whereas I had a team saying, "Oh, we've got to denounce this song." So we're not denouncing that song. That's a rap song. That's what they do. That's how they use it. That's not for me to say. I'm a middle-aged white guy. I'm not the guy that should be saying this. You know, I shouldn't be defending it, but I will defend it because that's what we should do. We should be able to recognize that people use different things in different ways, and it might not fit what my morals are, a way I would say it, although I typically, will be known to use a little blue language here and there. In fact, most of my podcasts have red dots on them because of my kind of language. I've threatened to punch one guest in his throat one time because of the way he acted on the show. So, nonetheless, everybody should be represented. Everybody should be heard. My job's not to change your opinion. My job's just to understand you a little bit better.
Thank you so much for listening to the Selling with Love podcast. We have some previous episodes you can tune into right here. And if you prefer the short form content where you get to the point in under 10 minutes, we do have a ton of clips from our best episodes that are being shared on this channel as well. So pick which one supports you the most. And of course, thank you for liking, subscribing, and of course, selling with love.